Welcome to Tips, the Townsend Institute podcast series, a show produced by the Townsend Institute at Concordia University, Irvine. This podcast shares stories of leadership, coaching, and counseling experiences that have shaped the lives and careers of our guests, who then provide tips aimed toward helping listeners grow in both their personal and professional lives. I'm Dr. John Townsend, psychologist, organizational consultant, and author of over 30 books, including the New York Times best-selling Boundaries series. I'm also the founder of the Townsend Institute, and I'm excited to introduce your podcast hosts, Dr. Ashlie Andrew and Dr. Gilbert Fugit.
Welcome back, everyone. On today's episode, we're joined by Dr. Karen Bergstrom, Director of Leadership Development for the Townsend Leadership Team and Executive Director of Safe Families. A longtime friend and colleague of Dr. Townsend, Karen is passionate about engaging and leading others for social change.
She sure is, Ashley. You can always sense Karen's desire to help all, most importantly, those vulnerable populations. In this episode, we talk about her years of involvement with the Townsend Leadership and Growth programs, as well as the TPRAT tool being used by even our own Townsend Institute students. And for fun, we get some stories about John. So let's get started.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Townsend Institute podcast series. I am joined today by my colleague Gilbert, as well as Karen Bergstrom. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. It is good to be here.
Glad you're here, Karen.
We have been waiting to have you on the podcast for some time now. There aren't many people who are as plugged in to the Townsend Institute or the Townsend umbrella or just a part of everything that we do here as you, Karen, and you have been for a while. So we're going to get into that relationship and the pivotal role that you play in some of these pieces. But before that, give our listeners a little bit of background on Karen, where you've come from and how you've come to be where you are today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think vocationally, I grew up in Orange County here most. We were in Seattle for about 10 years also as a family, but I really am a nonprofit executive leader as my background. Started off got my PhD in the same era with John and Henry, ran around trying to figure that out.
Did you go to school with them?
I went to a different school in LA in West.
Oh, okay.
But we were all with the same therapist and the same training and talking in churches, and collegially we were doing all kinds of innovation together. This was before they wrote their 100 books, but back in that era. So we were getting our degrees and in the same kind of growth groups, and that was how it began. And then I ended up in the nonprofit world, in the child welfare world, and I was preparing for this today, thinking about what have I done? What exactly did I come from? And my mission statement, even 20 years ago, was eradicate social isolation through the healing power of family. And I have always been a group girl. Family to me meant group. 15 years ran residential treatment facilities. We had about 45 of them. And it was really the orphanages of America. We're these 6-bed facilities across the US. Most of them are closed now. But it was group. I'm one of 6 children in my own home. We have lots of trauma in our family story. My mom had 4 kids by the age of 21 years old, and I was one of those 4, her favorite, the 4.
Mm-hmm.
4 by 21?
Wow.
Wow.
So a lot of our family was restored and redeemed through a lot of the concepts that I now get the privilege of teaching. But I thought that is really what I've done, is group. Really thought about running groups, how to get teams led, even as recent as the TPRAT teams. I'm still at finding ways to bring people together. I love Curtis Thompson talks about that family is the system on which all other systems are formed. And Dr. Curtis Thompson is one of the fellows, and I'm a fellow there too, and just love his work. It's so reinforcing of, I think, what our work is too, and what students are learning. So this idea of family, what is that? It's teams, it's family of origin, family of God. And how do we work together as neighbors and people to care for each other. And, you know, part of the gospel. So the nonprofit work was a lot of the work I did. Taught up at Seattle Pacific when we lived in Seattle. I'm also the mother of a team. I have 4 adult children now. I've been married 42 years, but even at home, you know, they were kind of a gang, had all of them pretty quickly and just enjoyed that. But probably what I wanted to share with you is this movement I've been a part of for about 17 years called Safe Families.
Mm.
And it has a lot to do with the growth model. That's why I wanted to bring it up. It was really built on this idea. We didn't have the TPRAT then, an assessment to take, but John and I had each other. I remember meeting with him saying, do you think there's any way that we could move the church back into the public square and to help families that are in such trouble, that don't quite need the government intervention, don't need to have their children removed, but they are on the cliff. They are on the, so this movement started Safe Families, and really the only calling of this movement was the relationship. Could we find families across America who would be an army of compassionate volunteers that could just take on a family that's struggling and love them through their crisis, host their kids in their home. And this is all for free. This is all non-government, just community-based work. And I remember sitting in the Mariners Chapel with John saying, do you think the church could be the army? Do we have to hire this out? Do we have to create another system and another program? And do you think, and this was, you know, years ago, 16 years ago, when the church wasn't as active in the public square. We were just good at inviting people in, weren't going out, or if we were going out, it was more missions.
Yeah.
At least the church I was raised in. So really cool part of introducing families in churches, for the churches to be the family and ask their families to serve, and then bringing families into people's homes and just loving them in this good old fashioned relational way of attachment, separation, and both families flourished. The family that was giving, and of course the family that was receiving. So I thought that was fun to think about it in terms of today with you guys, that was really built on the understanding that we won't hurt or harm people if we offer relationship. That cannot go wrong.
Yeah.
A one down or a fixing people. It's just offering me.
I had not really heard that whole background, right? I knew some about the Safe Families, but I didn't know the extent of how it was. And so then it sounds like you and John and Henry Cloud and all you guys were doing some work together. How did it end up, you know, because tell us a little bit about how this TPRAT, you kind of mentioned it didn't exist. How did this come about, and maybe working with John on this? Can you tell us how this came out of nothing here to be in existence today?
Yeah, I think it's just hard to teach. And so we were wondering if a tool could be developed, and it was, and it's evidence-based, really exciting tool. So the Townsend Relations, what's it stand for? TPRAT, Townsend Personal Relational Tool.
Assessment tool,
Tool. And what if we created something so the general world could understand attachment, separation, integration, and adulthood, because it's human. It's not clinical. It's functional. And what if we helped HR departments of organizations and churches and, you know, nonprofits, which is a love of mine, businesses? What if we figured out a way to provide a tool that could encourage growing our capacities to love each other if they're healthy and not harmful? So that's really how it started. I went down memory lane preparing for this. 40 years ago, before either of us were married, John and I were, and Henry and a couple other therapists, we were running around to churches starting lay ministries, counseling. But this idea that we're getting these great clinical degrees and we understood our brilliance, you know. We were like, this belongs in the world, not just in the counseling office.
Right.
Coaching wasn't really an active option in that era of ours. Even in that era, we were wanting to give these tools to all the
And,
schools of relationships. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
did you find a lot of churches were pretty open to that, or was there a lot of resistance?
There was a lot of resistance. It was really a separation, like it was a job someone did
Ah,
Wow.
to build relationships. It was newer, I think
Yeah.
John and Henry's writings,
Mhm.
then were newer.
mm,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
And just the growth in the focus on things like emotional intelligence and the soft skills that you hear about have, certainly become much more a part of the traditional marketplace now than it
Yeah.
was 4 decades ago, like you talk about. So, well, most of our listeners, I would assume here, are somewhat familiar with the TPRAT, especially if they've been a student in our Townsend Institute or part of the various other programs associated with Dr. Townsend here. But talk a little bit about the benefits of an assessment tool like the TPRAT, both if you are looking to take it individually to strengthen perhaps your skills or just maybe get to know yourself, self-reflection a little bit better, but then also how the tool can be used on those teams, like you mentioned, when you did take it into churches and
Mhm.
perhaps maybe some of the growth and change that came from that.
Yeah. So it's a tool designed for you to measure your own interior capacities.
Mm,
So it's not me telling you who you are. It's you taking an assessment and having your own personal insight is what parts of you still need development and growth.
Mm,
So the term we use that John has coined is character structure,
mhm.
and that we do so much on competencies. I mean, you're an academic institution, the competencies are important. And dot, 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 the character structure capacity is important too. So I think it just gives you a tool to give you a picture of the heart and the soul of you, of your
mm,
interior life. And where do you need to pick up the baton of growth that you were left with as you left home as an adult,
mhm,
Mhm.
and how you kind of can identify what areas of growth you need. I think it's a very hopeful model because it is about going forward, that
Yeah,
whatever you didn't receive, you can grow now.
yeah, it's not one of those models. That's one reason I like it a lot. The TPRAT it helps you. You're not just stuck right at this level. I mean the growth happens, and we've seen it with our
mhm,
students. Right, they take it when they enter the program. They take it when they leave the program, the TPRAT, and they get to celebrate their growth. We talk about it, I think, in their capstone, some of their presentations and things. So it's really powerful. In fact, one guy I was talking to him yesterday, one of our students. He was shocked. He said, "Well, I thought it was going to be adulthood, and I took TPRAT and realized it was attachment." Okay, then he started thinking, "Yeah, I see how this plays out for me." So,
Yeah,
yeah.
which is a
that's
totally different focus. And the other great thing I think about the TPRAT is you do get a whole manual as an
Mm-hmm.
individual of growth steps. We break it into 4, depending on your score. You're either in the strengthening or the growing or the starting or the sustaining role. I didn't do those in order. Based on those, on how you've identified your level or phase of development, then we have little growth model and action plan you can take in your life that are not
mhm,
clinical, that
Mm.
can be done in your small group that you're in, or your pickleball group, or anywhere humans are gathering and group exists and love is being distributed back
yes.
and forth. That will grow all of those.
If
Attachment got its own differences than adulthood.
if you were able to get into the pickleball world, Garen,
Yes.
I mean that would
I
take you.
That's elite status these days.
we could change the pickleball world.
Oh, wow. Imagine if we were a sponsor at pickleball, the World Pickleball League. So, yeah. Okay. All right.
I'll let you take that vision forward. I don't really call, but I'd like you to take that.
You take it and go. So, well, Karen, can you share maybe some stories, some success stories you saw maybe with people with their, the TPRAT scores, or even how you've seen it transform a team when you've been able to use the TPRAT and the growth model here?
Yeah, I loved that question when you threw it out to me. I think of course Safe Families is now 20 years old.
Mm,
And the thing that I kind of felt nervous about, can the church do this?
yeah.
Can the non-clinical world get involved with families that are just at this devastating phase of life at high potential, which would be similar to my mom's story. Um, what is actually needed. So I think the average right now, our percentage is 97% of children that are hosted are part of a safe family relationship. 97 stay with their family.
Oh,
Mm.
Yeah, 97%, not 97, 97%. And foster care and the removal of children that moves into the government role, which is necessary at times. I think the return rate's about 28%.
Mm.
So
wow.
it's a relational ministry. It's just
Yeah.
about, can I love you and be with you through this? So based on the model of growth and kind of assessing where people are at in their growth, I like to say some of the moms that we serve that are homeless, maybe even living with their children outside,
Mhm.
that their TPRAT score of attachment is higher than the mom
Mm.
family that's serving them because their vulnerability is so profound. Life has brought them to the place that they need to say, can you help me with my
Mhm.
most precious part of me, which is my children. So it's just interesting that the vulnerability can be passed and taught from somebody in a vulnerable phase where somebody else who has their life together, as we would call it, but they relationally need the attachment and the love that this vulnerable mom is able to model. So I've watched beautiful, beautiful nutrients being passed back
Mhm.
and forth in this thing. So that's one of the successes. I had a young man in my TLP. I'm a Townsend Leadership coach here in
Mhm.
Hmm.
county with Gilbert.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course it's group. There I am again in the
Hmm.
group, leading group. But one of the men in my group and him and his wife were suffering from infertility. So the realities of his life were just a shocking surprise. And he was lowest in integration, the catastrophic thinking and good and bad, not being able to be understood or felt. He was a pastor. I was just like he didn't have that part of his character structure well developed. So it knocked his tree over, really, infertility. And because it was just so outside of what he
Mhm.
planned for his life. So through growth, being a couple years in a TLP group and growing these parts of him, understanding integration was so shaky and
Mhm.
understanding what to do with it. He was able out of that to start here in Orange County, a nonprofit called Uniquely Knitted.
Mm.
Oh.
So this is, within 10 years, within 7 years of growing and
Mhm.
really understanding that part of him that was so underdeveloped, integration particularly, growing that part of himself up and being sturdy enough to say, I can now use what is the worst of my story,
Right.
bring it to other people. And he's created these growth groups for people
Mhm.
all across the nation. There's group again, but putting people together to grow, and they take the TPRAT, all of the families that enter into this, but just using the identifier of where do I need to grow so that I can go where it is I want to go in life.
Well, and
Mm.
I think about that for our listeners who are, church workers or pastors and things like that. It can also be so lonely and isolating, right? And when you're dealing with something like that in church. And so
Mhm.
for them to be able to go to a safe group like a TLP, but then start a nonprofit that really works with those kind of folks, that's life-changing right there.
Yeah. One other story, a mom I had in my group too, her she was low separation and working so hard at, I think she was in the group a couple years too. Little did she know, in the middle of her third year of TLP, her 5-year-old was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
And
Mm.
this 5-year battle, which she did pass away this year, and we lost the
Ah.
into that. But here's what I would say, what she would say to me and has said to me is, God knew that she needed to grow up that part of her to prepare for the storm, the reality of life that was coming.
Mm.
And she took charge. That
Yeah.
separation score, the strength of definition of who she was able to say no to doctors,
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
and just the power she felt of her identity and the strength and purpose and voice. Growing separation is really growing your voice. So
Right.
for a couple stories, and I just thought about some heroes that I think have been prepared for life by growing
Mhm.
their capacities. And not all life is the tragedies. I think this uniquely knitted is a great joy. It's more a victory. So anyways, I could tell you story after story, but
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
I think just preparing for what we don't know,
Absolutely.
that are the realities of life, that it's really a predictor of whether we can stay sturdy as we keep growing, or do we get entangled and just kind of get immobilized.
Such amazing stories to hear, and how something really as simple as an assessment tool and a little bit of relationship and a whole lot of love can really go on to change people's lives forever for some of them, right? In the case of, you talk about the safe families, and the amount of families that are able to stay together and weather those storms is just huge. And I can't help but think, you mentioned your faith and God obviously being a pillar behind all of this. Can you talk a little bit more about the faith integration? Now, many of us know you, and we know Henry, and we know John, and you all are so, Christ-centered believers, but we love to hear more about how that has undergirded so much of the research and everything that you all have done for decades.
Yes, it is just the lens. The gospel is the
Mhm.
lens of how I see people. I try to see people the way that I know God sees them. And I think that's why I believe it, whatever I kind of adopt as a framework in my clinical work and coaching work needs to be through the lens of what God calls us to do. And when it contradicts that, I can't quite go forward with it. So I think the scripture, 1 Peter 4:10, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. So we know we don't need another Karen in the world, We need
I don't know.
I don't know. The army of Karens. That'd be
This is
great.
wonderful.
we need the Gilbert, we need the Ashlie to all know, what your gifts are and
Yeah.
to serve from your place
Yeah.
in the world, and to not be entangled, so that we get to have the full Gilbert and the full Ashlie.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I see it, is that God he had a plan. If I was to coach God, I'd say, why didn't you just be the provider? Why do we have to use humans?
Right. Right. Oh, it'd be so much easier.
It'd be
So
Yeah.
much.
easier. I don't know why he did that. And my TPRAT lowest is attachment.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, I would like to be self-sufficient and not have to need you
Mhm.
to get what I need, and God's
Yeah.
a great provider. But that's not how he designed it.
Right.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
designed that we really do need each other. And 101 scriptures on one another. I mean, he's really into it. God is.
Yeah.
That's true.
Absolutely. I think he knew what he was saying,
Yeah.
right? He knew what he was saying. So, well, wait, Karen, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more. You say that we don't need an army of Karens. Again, I think Gilbert and I would disagree. The work that you do and the influence that you've had on just so many people and groups is awe-inspiring. Tell us a little bit more about what else is on the horizon. Talk a little bit more about safe families, or where people can find that information, or what else are you and your team continuing to do?
Well, I think the safe-families.org
Okay.
could find the map. The cool agency, the cool organization here is OC United. Amy
Okay.
Gauze, the executive director, she's our Orange County director of Safe Families
Okay. Great.
across the nation, and it's global now. So
Uh,
the England, Scotland, Wales will take us over in the numbers, Canada, Nairobi.
Wow.
So the reason it's mobilized is because it is God's story.
mhm.
I am actually not being humble. It's literally not well funded. It is really just gospel believing people
Wow.
obeying, feeling a little braver because there's a
Mhm.
system or a model they could do it in. But I think I mean, I know I'm excited about the TPRAT.
Yeah.
I really am excited about your students, people that understand it, bringing it to their world.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Well, we're going to continue to do that, and we'll make sure that website that you just mentioned lands in our episode notes, as well as the links and more info on the TPRAT
yeah.
And
as well.
and I want to go back here to the TPRAT, right? So sometimes you get your scores, I mean, I'm sure this didn't happen to Ashley. I'm sure she was at 100 in all four, but maybe in mine,
Right.
maybe mine wasn't a perfect score, and it was a little surprising in some of them. I mean, one guy. One guy I was working with, he got like a 9 in attachment. And he goes, that doesn't surprise me. I just want to talk about hunting and football. I should probably do more than that. And so, what do you do, though, that people that might struggle a little bit when they see some of these scores they get on the TPRAT?
Yeah, John and I just a couple months ago taught the TPRAT at his church, Mariners.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
We did overwhelmed to regulated, and we talked about your score and how you tend to be overwhelmed. If it's low attachment, how does low attachment tend to get overwhelmed? If it's low in separation. And this woman kept raising her hand. There's about 75 people. They all took the TPRAT before they came, and then we talked about overwhelmed. And she kept raising her hand, and we were kind of like, okay, we just wanted to get our brilliance across, we interrupted. So finally, John, we acknowledged her, and I had shared that attachment is my lowest. I tend to be self-sufficient, micromanage, isolated. And want to move more into connection. And that's what she wanted to say. She goes, "You're so warm. How could you be low in attachment?" She's like, "You're just kind and warm." And then John goes, oh yeah, she's low in attachment. He started telling her why I was low. And he explained to her, she's warm to you, but she doesn't need you.
Oh,
Don't lower in attachment isn't about warmness or kindness or passion. It's about whether we can let you love us. And so John made sure I go, well, let's talk about your low score, John. And maybe I could explain to everybody there. So we had fun with it, but it's just kind of baffling. I think people in the crowd felt shame, their scores,
Yeah.
people raised their hand,
yeah.
and I don't think I should be this low. And I'm like, it's your opinion of you.
Yeah.
You filled it out. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just your starting point.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Right.
do think when people look at their scores, they feel shame. We worked really hard whiteboarding words,
Mm.
John and I, to move away from shame because we wanted to use real clinical words. We can barely get away from them. But like an attachment, we use connected versus isolated. And we could have used all different kinds of words there, but we felt like those were lay people language to talk about the continuum of where we want to go. We couldn't get away from differentiated and boundaryless for separation. I think that differentiated word's a little clinical, but it's like the
Yeah.
best word to
Yeah.
describe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just taught the TPRAT certification, which I'll tell you all about in a second, but integration is polarized versus balanced.
Mm.
One of the people I taught said, I don't think I can use the word polarize. It's so negative. It's horrible. It's going to really not work well in the church here. So it's kind of like whatever word we create, it does just kind of trigger. And
Yeah.
adulthood's unprepared versus purposeful.
Purposeful. Okay.
We did use words, try to develop words that didn't ignite or trigger shame. But I do think when we don't look at our interior life very often, when we get a picture of it, we're like, oh no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, and then I have a question for you, Karen. I mean, obviously, our students that are introduced to the TPRAT are adults, right? We run a graduate program, and so they're adults. Has the TPRAT been used or could it be used on even children developing? Or what are your thoughts on that? I know we can apply the character capacities at times, but what are your views on that, especially coming from your lens, not only as a scholar and researcher, but as a mom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the needs cards, I have developed a children's version
Oh.
and got it down to 7 needs.
Okay.
Because I can barely handle the 22 myself these days,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's where it's better
Okay.
to be applied, because really, if we know what we need and are able to ask for that from a very early age, we are growing our capacities.
Yes.
You know how in Sunday school, the answer to every 5-year-old raising their hand to every question is Jesus.
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 Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel a little bit like that with character capacities. We have these wonderful growth ideas and skills and books on it, but really knowing what you need and having the right people in your life to meet your needs is the answer to all 4 capacities.
Love
Well,
that.
and
Growing,
I
yeah.
And I think, I mean, trying to get this to kids, right? So they can express this now. Like yesterday, right? I don't know, my son's fish died, so we had a fish funeral, right? And so, but it let kind of express, okay, we attuned to it, we're sad, and then we bury it, and then he seemed to be okay, right? Like we had this like a little ceremony, and then it was good, and he seems to be kind of moving on. But we had to kind of spend a little time in the well, but then okay, we can move on with it. So
Yeah, taking the time for that.
Mhm.
The kids are the best at it. I worked with an adoptive dad who is low, very low in attachment. I said, let him teach you. He knows
Yeah.
with his tantrums and all of the attachment issues this little one was having. I'm like, you never got to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not really encouraging you to lay on the floor in the same way and ask your wife for what you want. But the
Yeah.
idea is our children can model for us because they are superstars. They tell us
yeah.
what they need before they get inhibited by life.
Yes. Yeah. Raw, authentic. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
The therapist told me she's using the little needs card in prisons because
Okay.
Oh.
we're at
Yeah.
fourth grade level, the children's card. I don't
Yeah.
have children characters on it
Yeah.
because it's simpler.
Yes.
7 needs. So she said, yeah, I brought that to her prison ministry. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Oh, I could
Yeah.
totally see that. Different youth groups around the
Yeah.
country and stuff too. That would be wonderful. Well, you've given us so many great resources here. We have a couple questions that we want to wrap up with. Okay, for somebody who has had such a long-standing history with John and Henry, what other stories can you share? Do you have something funny you can share with us about them? But back, like you said, before they wrote their 100 books
Yeah.
and all of that, what's something back from college or those early days?
Didn't put that on my sheet. So
No, I didn't. It just
No,
came to
no,
me.
it's just, yeah, you never know where Ashley's going to go.
I don't know if it's funny, but I think that lay counseling thing is interesting. That
Mhm.
we ran around to churches and knocked on their doors. There were no books and just said, we want to bring this to you because we felt the limit of the church, capital C church.
Yes.
And we made up manuals, type them.
Yes, yes.
And we would, okay, what
With
church?
your words too, not Chat GPT. It was like your
No.
words
Oh,
and
no,
your
no, none
research.
of that. No, we did it all by ourselves. It's just our earnest desire.
Yeah.
I haven't even talked to John about this in years, but I was thinking about it here, but just our desire to let all people experience what it's like to really develop loving each other and that it belongs in the church. And if not there, where? So I don't know that that's a fun story. But yeah,
No,
they're starting the hospitals. I was working with them. I'm always like, John, what are you doing now? He's in
yeah.
it, would I be interested in being a fellow? I'm like, okay, what exactly are you doing? This is
Yeah.
it
Well,
always the next thing, to bring complex concepts to just make it simple.
and one of the next things you talked about was the certification. So what's the certification
Yeah,
thing you were talking
I
about?
think that this is part of making it simple. So we do
Yeah.
TPRAT.com is where all the information is on how you can be certified to
Mm.
be a practitioner or facilitator of the TPRAT. So it's not only that you can take the TPRAT yourself as a student or as a practitioner, but you can actually now get certified. It's an 8-hour class. And at this point, I'm leading that class. We do it about 5 times a year.
Mhm.
Have our first in-person one in October. As part of Growth Skills, we're merging kind of with some of their good ideas. So Growth Skills is going to host a TPRAT certification just to get it out into more hands and,
Yeah.
make it a tool that can be used by all.
And
Wow.
and I'm thinking about doing the one in on Teams. Isn't it? I think there's one in August or something on Teams. So I'm hopefully going to jump into that one. That'll be fun to learn more about that.
I have a team story because you told me this. I did teams at a church up in LA. They had about 25 staff, 5 pastors.
Mm.
And the pastors were all sitting at one table. We were in a U shape and they did their teams. They all got their teams reports and, it's your individual scores. Teams then puts them in the team that you're on and shows you
Mhm.
the comparison. And so one pastor, so all 5 of these lead pastors in different ministries of the church were lowest in separation. So I am not going to say that, but I was like, uh-oh. And so one pastor raises his hand and he says, what does it mean when all the pastors of the ministries are lowest in separation? And I looked at the rest of the team, the rest of the group there, and I said, what does it mean, team? And it was the most profound discussion where they said, we're exhausted. It's exhausting to have the way you are, the way you give away our times, our ministry, changing our ministries all the time, the overgive. And I'm just saying it was a discussion I couldn't have gotten to that quickly without them having their own insights and with their staff saying, I'll tell you what it's like to have 5 low separation. And they proceeded to effectively communicate the need to grow this area up as a team and how they could start doing that because some of them were high in separation.
Yeah.
So anyway,
That's awesome.
that's a team story. So yes, teams is just the application of, it's really taking group, which I've shared with you is a passion of mine, and showing how we interact with each other depending on our individual scores.
Oh my gosh, Karen, we cannot thank you enough for giving us those stories, glimpses into your life, your relationship, your history with John and Henry as well, because I mean, really, y'all are just servant leaders. The fact that you all literally were boots on the ground, right? Knocking on the doors of churches and doing things early on. I think that's just a testament to the heart that you have and just to see how this has grown so much over the years. And it's awesome for Gilbert and I to be a part of it down the road. This is wonderful. So
you are a part of it. Yes, you are.
well, we love that. Well, we end all of our episodes with a takeaway tip. You've provided so many great tips here today, but do you have one that you can leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I think it is this idea of writing your own personal mission statement. In my old age, I really meant it when no one needs to be a Karen or a John or a Henry. They need to be an Ashlie or a Gilbert. So I think it's profound to take the time. Even 20 years ago when I wrote mine, it's really been a great screen for me to say no to things and to force things that are right for me. And there's this C.S. Lewis quote, there's no ordinary people. You've never talked to a mere mortal, nations, cultures, arts, civilization. They are mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it's the immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry with, snub, exploit, and everlasting splendors. So this does not mean we're to be perpetually solemn. We must play, but our merriment must be of that kind, which exists between people who have, from the onset, taken each other seriously and loved each other well. So I think this idea that each of us are everlasting splendors, there's no one outside of that reach. And I think this TPRAT growth model is a great framework to reinforce that.
I love it.
Awesome.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. That love each other well, right? And we can do that by getting to know each other and deepening that relationship and that vulnerability. So thank you so much today, Karen, for your time and insights.
Staying with you. It's good to be with you.
Thanks, Karen.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoy the Townsend Institute podcast series, head to our website at cui.edu/Townsend to find out more about the certificates, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees offered through Concordia University, Irvine. With programs in mental health counseling, executive coaching and consulting, and organizational leadership, we have a variety of faith-based programs dedicated to helping you fulfill your academic and professional goals, all the while furthering your competence, character, and connection. Again, that's cui.edu/Townsend.